Let's talk about our situation here in Gauteng. Professor Bruce Malado is a member of the Gauteng Premier's Advisory Committee on COVID-19. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Obviously, very serious situation in our province. How much flexibility does Gauteng have to deal with the issues of infection rate versus, for example, the national program that's already in place? Are you beholden to national always?
Thanks for having me, Omar. So our committee, the role of our committee is to study the numbers in the province very carefully, talk to people on the ground, clinicians, practitioners, and acquire a holistic view of what's going on in the province. So as you correctly pointed out, the situation in the province is serious. We are in the aftermath of a spike that started last week on Wednesday. The acceleration has slowed down a bit, so we have now an increase of the number of cases of about 57%, down from 74% the week prior, which basically tells us that we are solidly on a trajectory. So the modeling seems to be indicating that the peak will be reached around the end of June, beginning of July, and the numbers we see are consistent with that trajectory.
But thank you for all of that context.
The level of the province,
what I want to understand, though, very importantly, and I think most people who live in this province want to know, are you subject to what national decides, or when situations like what's happened in this province, and some people have called it a catastrophe or a crisis of serious magnitude, are you allowed to move ahead and put plans in place to protect this province?
There's a contribution from both national and the province. Of course, national has a strong say in terms of what levels are imposed of restrictions in order to curb the numbers. But of course, the province has to implement all the plans and taking into account all the numbers and the projections, the number of beds that will be required, is to act on the ground in order to ascertain that all the resources will be at hand.
Okay, so I know that Western Cape, for example, already has a timetable in place. It might be changing from time to time, but that timetable says we'll be done with 60 pluses by X date. We will then start 40 plus, for example. So there's a clear delineation of when and how things will happen. Is something like that available for Gauteng?
Are you talking about vaccinations now?
Yes, vaccination timetable.
Yeah, also in terms of vaccination, there is a plan that has been set up and heavily discussed within the province, and also is coordinated strongly and heavily with national. And right now we are in phase 2 that started on May 17th, and we are trying to get people to get vaccinated over the age of 60. And that's critical now because that's the constituency that is most likely to develop severe illness should they contract the virus. So it's very, very important that the vaccination continue and that people register and get vaccinated.
Sure. So, Professor, we're talking about things that are already in process. When do we move to the next phase? Does Gauteng have a timetable that says cut off for 60 pluses, or we're done with 60 pluses, time to bring in the 40 pluses? Do we have anything like that?
I've seen the plans from the province. Again, we are an advisory body, so the body that is going to implement all this is the Department of Health at the level of Gauteng. But yes, I have seen certainly a plan in that the age will be gradually reduced in order to go from.
So when is that happening?
60.
When is that happening?
We haven't been told exactly what that's going to be.
Why is this? Why is so much of this opaque? I think one of the biggest issues our viewers, who are the citizens of the country, have is we know so little in certain areas about what happens next when 40 pluses get vaccinated, what's happened to the comorbidity issue. Why is this all held so closely guarded secret? Why does it seem like that?
Well, again, that question is to be addressed to the Department of Health, and obviously, as a citizen, I'm actually also a citizen in this respect. Everything would depend on the availability of jabs. As I said right now, the vaccination now is going actively for people of age of 60 and above.
So, like you say, you are in an advisory capacity. Are you aware of what's happening on the ground at the moment in Gauteng in terms of vaccinations? Do you know, for example, whether the various sites for vaccinations are being filled, whether, for example, somebody might be sitting at a site, nurses, vaccinations, and nothing's happening? 3 people turn up. Do you know these sorts of details?
We get the reports from the Department of Health. We certainly see and are privy to the situation at the different districts and the sub-district level, and we are certainly aware of what's going on. But again, this is something that is up to the Department of Health to convey and communicate, and I do believe that they are doing it on a regular basis.
Okay, so final question. You would have heard that Professor Mahdi is, vaccinologist Professor Mahdi is talking about the Vaxx vaccine. He's also previously spoken, and I want you to be very brief about this, about the AstraZeneca's efficacy. Again, not much that you can do to shift Department of Health when you're in the middle of a crisis like we are right now, I'm assuming.
Right. So as I said, the role of our committee, and I'm a modeler myself, I'm not an epidemiologist, what we do is basically help the province with the strategies that are the most effective given a particular number of vaccines. So, for instance, one of our advices that we have been given for the past months is that when we vaccinate the people over 60, we don't go right away to everybody else, but we escalate down in terms of age. This is one of the advices that we gave based on artificial intelligence and advanced analytics. So that's really where our role is and where our role basically ends.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Professor Bruce Malado is a member of Gauteng Premier's Advisory Committee on COVID-19.